Here's a checklist of all the things you must do right away. If you're stuck, make sure to ask our AI-powered chatbot for help. And don't forget to join a community of helpful humans. Now click here to learn how our product works. Just leave me alone and let me explore. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? After all, that's how most products greet new users, and that too at a time when people can't stop talking about the importance of data and personalization. Well, the biggest priority for startups that offer a self-serve product is to increase their activation rate by driving users to the activation milestone or the aha moment. And to make that happen sooner rather than later, most well-meaning products tend to overwhelm new users with in-app messages, checklists, and whatnot. So, what's the solution? Data-powered in-app experiences. In-app experiences include in-app messages, tours, tips, and walkthroughs, but not push notifications. If you're looking to deliver data-powered push notifications instead, check out part 3 of this series. I also recommend referring to part 2, which covers data-powered onboarding emails. The basic steps also apply to in-app experiences. Now let me start by stating the obvious. In-app experiences should be data-powered, as in triggered based on a user's actions, instead of being shown to new users the moment they land inside a product. Imagine entering a store, and instead of being given the opportunity to explore, you're greeted at the entrance by a staff member who wants to first give you a tour and tell you what the store sells, and also what's on offer and what not. Annoying, isn't it? Now consider this. You enter the store, explore at your own pace, and the moment you pick up a couple of outfits to try, someone guides you to the trial room. Or the moment you pick up a shoe, someone is there to bring you a pair of the right size. And they also tell you about a new collection that you might like based on what you picked. Once you're done shopping, someone guides you to the checkout and tells you about a store offer that you are eligible for. I'm sure that's an experience that'll bring you back to the store for more. This superior experience was made possible because store employees were observing your actions or collecting data and offered to help at the right moment when it was evident that you needed help. Your app is also like a store. You need to let users explore, collect data while they're at it, and offer to help when they need it the most. Now let me walk you through the 2 steps to onboard new users and guide them to the aha moment in your app using data-powered in-app experiences. Step 1. Drive users to the setup moment. Instead of dropping a list of things a user needs to do as soon as they land in your app, focus on driving users to the setup moment. This is essentially when the user has completed a task that's a prerequisite for them to use your product. So here are 3 examples of setup moments. 1. Verifying the sender domain in an email marketing tool. 2. Connecting the first step in a workflow automation. 3. Setting up the event data pipeline in an event analytics tool. Unless the setup moment is reached, one cannot really move forward to the aha moment. Also, a user might have to perform more than one task to reach the setup moment, and in some cases, even invite another user to help with the task. Now, depending on your product, you can trigger in-app experiences at this stage of the onboarding process using event data, persona data, or both. Now, let's go deeper into each of those examples. In-app experiences work best when a user can perform the set task right then and there, instead of waiting for someone else to do it for them. So in the email marketing example, to verify one's sender domain, the user has to leave the app or seek someone else's help. Therefore, before delivering an in-app message asking the user to verify the sender domain, it's worthwhile to get the user to do something quick and easy, such as importing an email list. Once the user completes that easy step, they're likely to act upon a message asking them to do something more time-consuming. Now, for certain types of tools, a user needs to perform just one step to reach the setup moment, but that one step might not be as straightforward as importing an email list. So to start using a workflow automation tool, a user has to connect an app that they wish to use in a workflow, which, depending on the app they're trying to connect, might involve several sub-steps. For example, if the app doesn't support an OAuth connection, the user has to visit the app, copy the API key, and paste it into the automation tool's interface. So in this scenario, it makes sense to trigger an in-app experience as soon as the user initiates the process of connecting an app by clicking the relevant button. For tools where someone from another team, like say data or engineering, needs to come in to complete the setup process, the primary user should be able to explore the product using dummy data before involving another team member. Now, this practice is becoming increasingly common for tools that involve a heavier lift in terms of setup, and event analytics tools fit squarely into that bucket. I recommend offering a guided tour of a demo instance and waiting for the user to complete an action, such as building a dummy report, before triggering a message or a guide asking them to bring their data in. So that was step 1, drive users to the setup moment. Step 2, drive users to the aha moment. So in most cases, a user has to complete multiple tasks between the setup and the aha moments. For an email marketing tool, the aha moment takes place when a user sends their first campaign. After importing a list of email addresses, one has to create a segment, create and configure a campaign, create at least one email, and then activate the campaign or just hit send if it's a broadcast. For the most part, one might need help creating a segment or a campaign, so it's worthwhile to trigger a walkthrough as soon as the user reaches the setup moment by importing an email list. Now, for a workflow automation tool, the aha moment takes place when a user test runs their first workflow and it works as expected. So to get there, at the very least, the user needs to set up a trigger, set up an action, and test run their workflow. And if all goes well, the user reaches the activation milestone. So I have worked for a leading workflow automation company, and to guide users to the activation milestone, we created 3 separate walkthroughs that triggered one after the other as soon as the user completed the previous step successfully. And if a user dismissed a walkthrough, they weren't shown the next one. Now, finally, for an event analytics tool, the aha moment takes place when the user builds their first report using live data. Now, if a user has already gone through the walkthrough earlier and built a report using dummy data, it doesn't make much sense to trigger another walkthrough when they log in. On the contrary, it makes perfect sense to do so if the user is logging in for the first time. Essentially, a user should see the in-app experience showing them how to build a report only once, ideally the first time they log in. To wrap up, in-app experiences can be very effective, but only if a good amount of effort and thinking goes into the setup. It's also good to keep in mind that unlike onboarding emails, where the goal is to bring users back into the product, in-app experiences are meant to help users while they're already in the product. And the last thing you want is to annoy users by delivering irrelevant and redundant experiences. So please don't. Good luck. Well, I hope this video was useful. Thanks for watching. And by the way, there's a written version of this guide that contains additional context, examples, and diagrams, so do check it out below. And one more thing before you go, there's a ton of useful data content on our free learning hub, neatly organized into topics and learning paths. Don't believe me? Well, see it for yourself on databeats.community.